a small crowd. Okay, if Hashem is everywhere, what does it mean that the water cried when it was separated on the second day when they wanted to be closer to Hashem? The question is, on the second day, the waters were crying because Hashem separated and put the higher waters high and lower waters low. The lower waters are crying, we want to be closer to Hashem. The Zohar is asking, Hashem is everywhere, so why couldn't they just be happy to be lower down here? So the answer is, there's something called Giluyim and something called Etzem, which means that there's feeling Hashem in a revealed kind of way and in a hidden kind of way. So although it's true that Hashem is everywhere, but in a revealed kind of way, in the heavens, which in this case it's a metaphor, obviously not Pshuta, it doesn't mean that you're flying on a plane, you feel closer to Hashem. It means a ruchnistic thing. When you're the Shamayim means the Shamayim Aruchnim there's a more Gilui Alikus. So the waters were crying because they were pushed away from the Gilui. Even though the Hashem is everywhere, but they didn't feel that connection anymore, and that's what they were bothered about. What is the Rebbe's opinion on getting a license? What is the problem with getting a license, if there is one? And what is the right time to get one, if there is? So, there's one famous story which everybody always says, and that is that there was a bacher that wrote to the Rebbe that he wants to get a license, so this way he'll be able to do mivtzoyim, be able to drive a tank, and this way he can do afatzah. So the Rebbe wrote him back. This is a famous answer. The Rebbe told him, don't mix your taivas with my mivtzoyim. That's the story, which everybody implies from that the Rebbe is saying to the bacher that getting a license is not a good thing, and therefore don't blame your Yitzhahara on the good thing. Some bacher want to argue, what do you mean? The Rebbe is just telling him that it could be that it's okay, but don't make it a holy thing. The way everyone learns the pshat in the story, the pastor says the Rebbe is calling it a taiva, something which is wrong, and the Rebbe is saying don't make it kosher by connecting it to mivtzoy. Some Bachram want to argue, no, maybe the Rebbe means that it's a part of the thing, and the Rebbe was telling this Bachar, don't make it into a holy thing, but it can still remain part of. You could say that if you really want. There's also another point the Rebbe mentioned in the Sikha about the Frierdiker Rebbe. And today Rabbi Bet Shimon said the story by Riches about the Frierdiker Rebbe, about what he was involved with. So the Rebbe said in the Sikha that the Frierdiker Rebbe was a shleimusdika person. He was a person that was tachlas ha-shleimus. And the Rebbe said that he was able, he knew how to ride a horse, he also knew how to shoot a bow and arrow, and he was able to hit a target while he was riding on a horse. And the Rebbe says, because since he was a shleimus of a human being, so he had all the malice that a human being can have. And yet, he did not have a license, he did not know how to drive a car. So the Rebbe learns from that it seems like someone told the Rebbe that he must have a license. In order to be a mensch, he must have a license. And the Rebbe told him, if the Frierdiker Rebbe didn't have it, the Frierdiker was shleimus of the person, you must have a license. So Bachram are going to argue, but today is different. The Rebbe was speaking already many years after the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Rebbe didn't say there's a change. At the same time, there was, I think, a chassid, I forget who it was, that he was married and he was on shlichus, and he tried getting a license and he failed a few times. The Rebbe told him, you're a baklin. Like, well, why do you keep failing your driving test? So, the general, what I was taught by Imam Ashpiyim is that anything that has to do with Olam Hazeh, a bacher should not be involved with. And having a license is a very big step into Olam Hazeh. You're connecting very much to Olam Hazeh. You're making yourself a statement. You're mechubar, and the lashon is always my license. That's kiviyachol ma'in, that I'm connected to it, and therefore it was always frowned upon. So Bachrim, we're going to say, but anyway involved in Olam Hazeh. Anyway, have other things. So you could say that, but obviously every thing that you do that's more connected to Olam Hazeh is more of an issue. So b'meila, ideally a bacher should not have a license. That's the ideal. When is the time to have it? When it comes to time that Mitzad is Aveda in the world, whether the Aveda is Afatzas Hayadus, or if he gets a job and he has to drive to his job, or he gets to the point that he's getting married and he needs it for chleis, or things like that. And that point, so then already you speak to Mashpia and L'chayru would get it. But B'derech Klal, a younger bacher, Mesifta, and even Zal Bachrim, the Chassidische Bachrim would not get a license, not have to do with it. Is it a terrible Aveda? No. Is it a big Aveda? Lav Davka. Is it even a small Aveda? Also Lav Davka. But it's definitely not something which is Kedusha, and this is basically what it is. So besides the two things that I said from the Rebbe, I don't know more than that. I don't know anything else, but could be there's more answers, Lakan or Lakan, but that's my understanding.
What about a permit?
Same thing. What is your opinion on dinosaurs? Rabbi Ben Shimon has a shir on dinosaurs. Mr. Hashem will have to ask him one day to give a shir, and you'll hear all the interesting things about it.
Yes, for your.
Huh?
Yes, for your.
My opinion is that Rabbi Shimon is a very good shir on dinosaurs.
You agree with him in that?
Huh? I agree with his opinions, yeah. What happens if Mashiach comes right now? Amen. Do Kohanim and Levim go run to mikveh? Do we hop on the clouds? Kohanim and Levim first. Are we going to Yerushalayim first, or are we going to gather somewhere else, and from there we're going to go to Yerushalayim? So, the Rambam in Perek Yud Beis from Hilchas Melachim Halacha Beis, the Rambam writes about a machlokes about Eliyahu Novi, about when he's going to come, what's going to be Melchamas Gog Yomogig, back and forth. And then the Rambam says, Val Kolponim, Ein Sidur Havoyas Dvorim Elu, V'lei Dikdukei and Ikar Badas. That he says, the Sidur of these things, exactly what it's going to be like, it's not an Ikar in Yiddishkeit. And he says before that these are Dvarim Stumim, and it's not clear, and that's where there's Machlekes with Dvarim Elu. And he says that a person should not be misasik in these things, he shouldn't make them Ikar, it doesn't bring the Avar Yira. So, but basically, on the one hand, the Rebbe says the Koch and Gula Mashiach, which obviously is very important, but details like this, it's nice to fantasize about, but it doesn't say anywhere. So it doesn't say, the Rambam says it doesn't say anywhere, this is not the Koch. It's cute, there's a lot of jokes that people say about these things, but it doesn't say, there's no clarity. Definitely we're going to go on the clouds and go to Eretz Yisrael, go to the mikveh first or mikveh second, or Kohanim and Levim first. Those things are not clear, but even clothes, you're supposed to be Mechabed the Kohanim first. But just like today, but that cloud, it's not like that. I don't know if a Mashiach comes, it'll be different. And they don't lunchroom. The Kohanim get lunch first. Everyone gives you honor to go first. Lav Davka. So Lav Davka will happen on the clouds either. Huh? We should change that. The Kohanim. It says that a Mamzer Talmud Chacham is Kohanim Kohanim Am Audit. Yes. So what about that? Practically, if someone wants to get married before 18 or while still in yeshiva, but only Eirusin, can he do it? And how should it be done in terms of the shidduchim? And would you advise it at all? So first of all, I'm not sure the Baruch meant Eirusin as in Kiddushin versus Nisuin, where he's asking about shidduchim, one of his medayah. You're not supposed to do Kiddushin without Nisuin. That's B'chlal HaKlal. So the Kiddushin has to be right by the Nisuin. That's the day we do. We do the Kiddush Kesef under the Chuppah, and right away is Nisuin. And also regarding shidduchim, so in the past the Seder was that between the shidduch and the actual chasana could take close to a year. Today the Rebbe encouraged very much to do it as quick as possible within a few months. So b'meila, that's number one. Practically speaking, the bacher is before 18, no. I think he's before 18, he probably should not get married yet. If he's over 18 and still in yeshiva, then it depends on the bacher. Most bacherim I would say yeah. How should you go about it? So you could go tell your parents that you're ready to get married and tell them to put your name on the call of Shatchanu, and then from there they'll call you and tell you that we have a name for you, and then from there you go to your mashpia and discuss with him, and then you mitzvah Hashem, you go weiter. One more pratim and a pratim stick away, you can come over.
Would we be able to leave yeshiva for his wedding, or?
Probably. It was
One of his weddings is Shabbos.
Can't get married on Shabbos. There's a mashpia in London, Rabbi Gordon. So he farbrenged, and he said that a bacher in yeshiva is a bacher till the day he gets married. And he said that when he was a bacher, so the day he got married, he went on Holos Yeshiva in 770, and he asked permission to go to his own wedding. David Rask. So I asked him, no, what did he tell you? So he asked me, what time is the wedding? Okay, you can leave an hour before. 2 hours before, I face is prepared. What would you do if you catch a bacher smoking? I know the Rebbe said not to, but if a bacher was addicted, would you take them away? Yeah, we would take them away. Even if a bacher is addicted, we should take him away. I'll try to break his addiction. And we could talk to him more. But if a bacher is addicted, he has to before he comes to yeshiva, he has to tell him, no, say yeshiva, I have an issue. And this is what it is. And yeshiva has to negotiate if they're ready to accept him or not. Otherwise, it's a mekach tos. If a bacher comes to yeshiva and he says, I must smoke, and yeshiva doesn't let him, then it's not, these are the rules of the yeshiva. You can't come and expect the yeshiva to break the rules just for you. Huh? Oh, you're addicted? What's the problem with beer? Is it not Hasidish? Does the Rebbe's Gzeira apply? So, the problem with beer is, and we will speak about this, there's many, many things that fall into the same category. That Be'etzem, it's not a treifa thing, it has a hechsher. Be'etzem, it's not a problem. The problem with beer is what's associated with. And b'derech klal, you look around the yeshiva and you see the bachim that like beer, or b'derech klal, they're not Chassidish bachim. B'derech klal, it goes together. which implies that the taiva for beer is not a taiva for a drink, like we have a taiva for a coke or something like that. It's a taiva to be involved in goyishkeit. That's b'derech klal the rule. B'derech klal is like that. There's always yetzim in a klal. By beer, it's more yetzim in a klal than it is by other things. By beer, there's a lot more bachrim that are considered chiddush, and they still have a taiva for beer. But the big majority of the ones that are interested in beer are b'derech klal interested afka in a certain atmosphere that comes along with it, a certain wildkeit. Say yulmad mimdina de malchusa. In the world, there's a law that you can't buy beer until you're a certain age, because the world also understands that when a young person drinks it, it can lead to a wildkeit and afkedus, and therefore they don't allow it. So b'meile be'etzim it's not a treifa thing, and be'etzim if it's a kivyochol, it's just a taiva for another job. But since it ends up involved with many other things, so that's why, as a general rule, yeshivas don't allow it. There's another element, that's the alcohol part of it, which is it's a smaller percent, but it does have an effect, and it's another issue. B'chlal, for people to get high is not a healthy thing. Whoever was here today can understand, or here or there. So any kind of being high is a problem always. But it's a smaller part of it. Getting the alcohol part. It's more the whole. I mean, how gufa that it's associated with all the goyishkeit is because of the alcohol. But the ikar is the goyishkeit of it.
Am I allowed to be high on coke?
What?
Like not Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to be high on it?
Are you allowed to be high on it?
Yeah.
Chemically, it doesn't really make you on a high. So.
Debatable.
Regarding the gzeira, as far as I know, is only on mashke and even wine, but not on beer. So I don't think there's a gzeira on beer. I never heard that.
More than 4 wine?
Yeah, the Rebbe said also on wine, not that more than
How
4.
much percent wine?
In my times, there wasn't such a light wine. Well, wine was like 12, 13%.
Rashi wine now, you're not supposed to have
I doubt it. When the Rebbe started the gzeira, as far as I understand, it was on wine as well, wine and mashke. But I never heard of beer. Maybe I'm making a mistake. You have to look in the sikha. The sikha that they made the gzeira.
How do you do other places?
So versteht sich. Even drinking a cup of wine is more than a revis. It's also an issue. The gzeira can't have more than a revis. So obviously, the Rebbe said for kiddush and other cases you're allowed to, but other than that, you should. If you want to see the details of the gzeira, it's in Parsha Shmini, Tavshin Chav Gimel. That's where the Rebbe made the gzeira. Those are the details are there. But Pashtus beer is not part of the gzeira, but it's associated with goyishkeit. That's the problem with many other things, and that's why it shouldn't be done.
You said b'derech klal, yeshiva doesn't let Bachram have beer. Does that mean there are exceptions?
When there's a Shalom Zocher and someone takes a little that says l'chaim on the beer, he's not going to get a knas for it. But if a person starts shloking beer on a chadan, that's an issue. Yeah, then all will get involved. Our Bachram are buying beer, having beer stamazeh, drinking the stamazeh. That's a problem. Another problem a lot of Bachram don't realize is that some Bachram consider themselves to be very mature. But everyone considers themselves mature, but everybody is not mature. So a lot of times there's other guys around, and other guys around that are not as mature as you, they're going to start taking the alcohol and taking it out of proportion. Al derech today, yeah, the guys drank today, so some of them are little kids that are not shaykh for it, and everyone wants to know the results. So it's a different episode. The older guys were saying, but I drank it, I didn't do anything wild. So that's another factor that Bachram have to realize. When in yeshiva, there's other people around, so the policy is not just to keep everyone on the same, it's also other people shouldn't get affected by it.
You said if you put the beer into a cup,
In theory, if you put it into the cup, it's also less chomer. I mean, there's a bacher here many years ago, today's a young man with kids, so he's very proud of himself that for a whole year he drank beer and zal every day. He had himself a mug with a cover on it, and he had beer inside, and he drink every day beer in front of our eyes, and we never caught him. So he did it. That's not. It's not like you're getting anybody. But the Sheni, he drank it as a drink. He wasn't making a whole shtick about. It wasn't drink with the whole atmosphere that it came with. He liked the drink and he got it. And that's it. Say no. It's not in that sense. It's not the end of the world. If I would catch it, I would stop it. Yeah. With Ma'achar Ma'isa, I'm not upset at him. Why didn't the Rebbe cough in his elbow, only his hand?
Coronavirus.
Coronavirus. First of all, I'm not sure exactly if the Rebbe never coughed like this, always like this, but any event, all the Rebbe's actions by Chassidim are all, it's all a reflection of Lamayla. Even though some people don't like hearing this, but by a regular chassid, he'll say that when the Rebbe makes with his hand like this, the Rebbe is making this left hand, it's connected Gvura Datzilus. There's Ryan is connected Chesed Datzilus, and there are people like Rabbi Vogel, when they farbreng, they say how many times the Rebbe went like this and how many times like that. So a lot of Bachim don't like listening to that, but most Chassidim believe that yes, every number, everything is a cheshbon, it's all Eizge Halten, it's all these reasons behind it all. So every tnu of the Rebbe is definitely Eizge cheshbon. We have in the summer here Rabbi Oberlander from Muncie, give a shir. So he said, as a bacher, he was very into halacha. He used to watch the Rebbe the whole time. He said the Rebbe was a walking Shulchan Aruch. Every tnuah was all he was able to learn the Rebbe just to be like this and like that. He was able to learn every little prat. So by Chassidim, it's pasha that everything has a cheshbon. What's the cheshbon over here? I don't know. When you're coughing b'chlal, it's polite to cover yourself. It shouldn't spread out. Why dafka you're in tzvara, you make like this. It's less. You don't touch things afterwards. But I don't know. I don't know a reason for it. I never heard a reason. If anybody has a reason, I'll it. But the pashas, we just believe that whatever the Rebbe is doing is perfect, whether we understand or not. Huh?
Hygiene, basic hygiene.
The question was why not like this?
Oh, you didn't do like that? You did it then?
It seems like this more often. Yeah. How do we know that any time or every time the Rebbe spoke about the Friedrich Rebbe, about Chaim Nitzchim and being Mashiach, he was also referring to himself? So there's a Maimer V'atat Tetzaveh where the Rebbe speaks about that the Friedrich Rebbe said about Mordechai, that Mordechai b'doirei k'Moshe b'doirei, and the Friedrich Rebbe explains what's unique about Mordechai HaTzadik versus all other tzaddikim. Then the Rebbe brings a Mishnah. The Mishnah says there's a lashon in Mishnah is called din v'cheshbon. Din v'cheshbon means report. You make a cheshbon and a din. It says when a person passes away, they make a cheshbon of what he does, and then they give him a din. But the expression is din v'cheshbon. First you pass him din, then you make the cheshbon. So it's explained that what happens lamaila, and it's brought down Nach also a similar story, that when a person is brought up lamaila, what they do is they ask him a shaila about a certain behavior. And they ask him what he thinks. And he makes up psak din, he paskins that person, I think this is the punishment this person deserves. And then they tell him, we're making a cheshbon on you, and based on what you're saying, based on what you said, the cheshbon is, you deserve the same kind of psak. So the Rebbe said, when the Friedrich Rebbe said about Mordechai HaTzadik, that he's K'moshe b'doirei, he said he explained it also. So now we're going to make the cheshbon that the Friedrich Rebbe said about Mordechai HaTzadik, and we can see that the same applies to the Friedrich Rebbe. So that's the simple explanation, that whenever the Rebbe spoke about the Friedrich Rebbe, the things that he said about the Rebbe, so us Chassidim of the Rebbe make the same cheshbon and say, the Rebbe made the din and said it about the Friedrich Rebbe, and we can make the cheshbon applies to the Rebbe as well. That's B'derech Klal, the Hasbaras Advarim, and that's all the generations always, whenever one of the Rebbeim spoke about a previous Rebbe, so the Chassidim of that Rebbe always understood that the same applies to that Rebbe himself, and the same thing applies to our generation. Are there any nevuas from Nach that happened in the last 50 years? So, I don't know. It could be. B'derech Klal, it's many things that happen. People find it a Muslim. There's a guy, Rabbi Wolf, in California. He puts out a lot of videos on Q&As and different things. And a lot of times he connects current events to different things that it says in Torah, B'chlal. So he might find connections, but I have never heard. I mean, there are many things in B'chlal, general concepts that speaks about it Tanakh, which you can find. But any major kind of event, like the Twin Towers, for example, I never heard anybody showing that it clearly says in the Pasuk, this is going to happen, then it happened. But the Pashas, everything is Purim in Torah. Huh? Yeah, but the codes are not so reliable. The codes are all hashar. Huh? That's a whole big discussion. What is Mechemes Goygo Magin? How it works? Someone put that in Q&A. I'm in the middle of doing research on it to put together a whole thing. You could touch that on. No one knows for sure if that's what it's counted.
People say the go for it. People say the Quran.
No, but you can say what you want, but no one knows for sure that it's coming from. But Tzaddik comes and says that the Navi is speaking about Kach v'Kach, then we know. Muhammad, when he came out, so the Tzaddikim said that this is referring, this psukim that speak clearly, there's a certain pasuk, it's referring to, it's clearly the Navi is speaking about it. So when the Tzaddikim said that this is what the Navi meant, fine, but today when people come with their own ideas, it's nice to learn, it's nice to see, a lot of times it fits very beautifully, but to say as for a fact, I know that this is what the Navi meant, I don't know if anyone can say that today.
We never talked about it, no?
About what?
Like the current word go for it.
The chita du charveisam leitim, the only thing, yeah. The chita charveisam the Rebbe says.
No, but doesn't he compare the go for it?
It's a medrash Yalkut Shimoni. It's not a Navi in Tanakh. If anything, the chita du charveisam leitim is a pasuk where the Rebbe says that the UN made a decision to try to do more funding towards peace instead of for war. That the Rebbe Taka said, yeah. So that's Taka something we should have spoken about. If a goy learns Torah, does he get schar? So there's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Gimel Amud Aleph. It also says it in Bava Kama, the Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. Gemara says, Hoyer Rabbi Meir Omer, Minayin Shafilu Koyin Gadol V'Eisek B'Torah. I'm sorry. Shafilu Oivet Kechavim V'Eisek B'Torah. Shu Kegoyin Gadol. How do you know that even a goy that learns Torah is greater than a Koyin Gadol? Back to you. Talmud Loimar Asher Yasa Eisam Adam V'Chai Behem. And a person that does chai gets chai. Any person that's involved in Torah, that even a guy that learns Torah is like a kohen gadol. He doesn't get as much schar as someone that's commanded to learn Torah, but someone that's commanded, but he also gets a big amount of schar. This is what the Gemara says. And Tosfos adds, we're only talking about the Torah of the Sheva mitzvahs. So a guy that learns what he's not supposed to learn is chayav misa, but he learns what he is supposed to learn, he can even reach a schar more than the kohen gadol. So that's the answer. In short, that there is a schar, but only for the person who's allowed to. Huh?
What if the kohen gadol also learns Torah?
Then obviously he'll be even better than him. That's it. Can you listen to non-Jewish instrumental music? No words. Oh, no, another question, the same thing. Is classical music considered goyish music? So this question comes up, and I did some research on it. I asked a whole bunch of people. I got a lot of different answers. In Svara, mitzad, the way it's always explained in the Sichos about music, in Svara it would seem that classical music is just as bad as regular non-Jewish music, as regular what we have today, all the stam, so to speak, goyish music, because the word is that a goy is composing it, and a goy is klipas atmeis, and when he's composing music, is coming from his nefesh, and when you listen to that music, you sing that music, you're connecting to his nefesh, which is klipas atmeis. So the simple assumption would be, mitzad that svara is that classical music is just as bad as non-Jewish music, regular non-Jewish music. However, there are numerous stories of big chassidim, the fi'arach big chassidim, frume yidden, and they listened to goyish, they listened to classical music. There's even a story of a sofer, a chosh of a sofer, that when he would write, he would also listen to classical music, or he would check, and he was a chassidish that everyone trusted him 100%. And there's another story that I heard just now also, and I just verified it's written on different places, that the Rebbe Rashab, one of the times he was traveling, so he stayed in a hotel, and in the room next to him, there was a violinist that was playing, a Goyish violinist, and he was practicing for his show.
Someone died.
Me? Huh?
בטוח מישהו בעולם. Someone.
So the Rebbe Rashab was listening to this guy playing the piece, and he said that he skipped a 16th. You understand? He skipped the 16th. I don't know what that means, but basically it's a very, very subtle note that most people won't even notice, and it's very hard. It's not subtle, it's big.
It's pretty noticeable.
It's very noticeable. Oh, no. It's not. Sure. Whatever the case, a regular person wouldn't notice it, the pashtus. And the Rebbe Rashab sent a message to tell him that he missed the note. So he was very impressed that someone was listening, was able to chapsich. So he said, it's a very hard thing for me to perform. So when I'm practicing, I don't put my extra energy involved. But when I perform on stage, then I make sure to do it right. And then since you appreciate it, so the violinist asked the Rebbe Rashab, can you please come to the theater, and you'll hear when I play it then, and then you'll see that I thought I did it right, because he wanted to show. So the Rebbe Rashab said, I don't go to theaters. So the violinist said, I'll get you a ticket in the back seat, in the backstage, behind the stage, so you won't be there. So the Rebbe said, fine. And Taka went there and he listened, and we got to that part. The guy Taka did it right, and then the Rebbe listened, and then he left right after that. So again, this is another interesting story where the Rebbe Rashab listened to classical music. So again, it can't be treif. So again, in Svara, it has to be as bad as always. But mitzad these stories, it's mashma that it's not as bad. And the pashtus, it's part of klipas noiga. And when it's something which is it's called trash music or cheap music, then obviously that's more klipas atmeis from the goy. But if it's a edel type of music, then it comes from an edel apart. So who's going to measure what's considered classical and what's not? It's taka hard, and you have to ask a chassidish that listens to classical music which ones are kosher or not kosher. But pretty much, I think even in the Welt, they would be able to tell you what's considered classical or not. You don't have to be a big maven in that, and that's the maskana. Kopanim in yeshivas, I don't know if it's you would suggest for a bacher to listen to it, but mitzad sheni, based on these stories, I don't know if it could be a flat isser like regular Goyish music. It says in Shulchan Aruch Yeridea that it's usher for a man to look in a mirror. So how come everyone does? So it's everyone. There was a chassid, his name was Rabbi Avraham Ayor, They say it about him that one time he came to a wedding in Al-Torah, earlier years, and he came into Al-Torah and he saw a Yid with a big beard. And he hadn't seen a Chassidish Yid with a big beard for a long time. So he ran over to give him a hug, and he bumped into the mirror. So not everyone does it. Not everyone. Today, because there's so much pictures happening the whole time, it's almost impossible not to see faces and pictures of yourself all the time. But looking in the mirror proper, I don't know if everyone does. Afal b'chein, it's still mutter, and the heter is because the whole isser is misat la'ilbash gever simlas isha, and it says that today already it's considered tikunei gvarim as well. Since today many men do it also, it's not considered an issue. Another thing is that the chatchila it says if it's time for tikkun Russian to make yourself look prettier kivyachol, that's not an issue. But it says if somebody has bruises on his face and he has pimples and he's putting on a cream, that's definitely mutter 100% because it's not doing it to make he's trying to heal himself, to clean himself. It's not doing it stamazay. That's for tefillin, it's for a purpose. But if his person is doing it even stamazay to kivyachol look better, even that it seems like today it became standard even amongst men, and therefore the place can say that it's just place to be machmir, but mashma that it's mutter. Yeah.
A bunch of things which became standard.
By this, the place can say clearly.
I mean, the other things were still also because of it.
I understand what you're saying. But this place can say since the change, and therefore becomes mutter as well. Other things I don't know about. I haven't seen. Why do we sing Eishes Chayil before Kiddush? The reason it's based on Kabbalah, and the reason is that Shabbos is a day of Malchus. Sfiras HaMalchus in Chassidus is a very, very important Sfira. And on Shabbos there's something called Aliyas HaMalchus, where Malchus goes up to higher places. So Ring Mishabeach and praising Sfiras HaMalchus, and Malchus is considered a Nukva, a Isha, and that's why it is praised. People want to say also it's thanking to the woman of the home, that with that she's the one that prepares the whole Shabbos, but that's not the Pasha Pshat. The Pasha Pshat is connected Sfiras HaMalchus, because it's a whole thing that's Al Pi Kabbalah, and in the beginning of Shabbos, the whole Malchus we say, throughout the davenings, we're talking about it, about how Malchus is, Sfiras HaMalchus is Eilul. Is it a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael if one is not on shlichus? Especially if Eden, because Eden are going to go to Eretz Yisrael, is one of the signs of Mashiach. So that's a big problem this Bacher is writing. Is there a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael? So mitzvah from Taryag mitzvahs there isn't, according to the Pesachim and Pashtus. Is there an Indian to live in Eretz Yisrael? Obviously, you see from the fact that Gdei Yisrael throughout all the generations were constantly trying to go to Eretz Yisrael. Some of them ended up, some of them didn't go. But there's definitely an Indian to live in Eretz Yisrael. Regarding today's day and age, so many people that they wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, the Rebbe told them that they have a shlichus in where they are at this part of the planet. Even people that were not officially on shlichus, but the Rebbe always said if the Hashgacha Pratis put you in a certain place, so the fact that you're living in this city, even though your job might be your place, you're working in real estate, but the fact that you're a Fruma Yid in this city, that itself is your shlichus. And the Rebbe did not encourage people to move to Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe wanted them, every person, to do his shlichus wherever he was. Again, not shlichus as an Abbas Chabad shlichus, more as any Fruma Yid in Chutz La'aretz strengthens the people that are there. Regarding that, it's a sign of Mashiach. That's a big mistake. This is one of the big machlekesen that the Zionists, their whole claim is that kibbutz galuyos bring, when all the Yidden come to Eretz Yisrael, that will bring Mashiach. The Rebbe Rashab fought against that very strongly. If Mashiach has to come first, and only then comes kibbutz galuyos. So, in connection to Mashiach, there's no bringing Mashiach closer by everyone going to Eretz Yisrael. Everyone had a chutz la'aretz that being mekar of more Yidden, then people that brings Mashiach closer.
So should everybody go out of Eretz Yisrael?
Every Beshkacha Pratis, wherever you are, you have your shlichus to do what you have to do. So if you live in Eretz Yisrael, there's enough Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, they can do mitzvahim with them as well. So everyone has to do whatever they can. With Beshkacha Pratis, put you in a certain place, that means that's the shlichus that you have in this place. And if circumstances change and you must move somewhere else, so you see what the options are. If a child moves to Eretz Yisrael, then fine. But that's but that the kav is, the Rebbe's kav is, you stay where you are and you do your avodah in the place where you are. All right, ready? What is the real reason yeshiva doesn't let Bachram go to the Rebbe for Yud Shvat?
Oh.
Dun dun dun.
Hey guys, Q&A is over.
Q&A over, everybody. There's a number of reasons. A number of reasons.
Is the number 0?
Huh?
Is the number 0?
Zero is not a number. She should know mathematics.
Fine, one. Fine, one.
Right. It's a number. There's no value. It's a figure.
0 is 9.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the answer.
First of all, the first question that we ask back is, what's the real reason that Bachrim want to go to the Rebbe for Yud Shvat? And the answer by many Bachrim, starts saying numbers, is that they want to see their friends. Many Bachrim, their friends come in from other places, and they want to see their friends. That's the reason by many Bachrim. Some Bachrim are honest about it, some Bachrim are not honest about it. Some Bachrim are not aware that that's what's pushing them, but that's why many Bachrim. So, for that reason, the answer is simple. Yeshiva doesn't just give off a vacation just to visit friends. It's not a thing that a Bachrim Yeshiva is supposed to be doing. Then there are Bachrim,
What?
Then there are Bachrim that they want to go because they want to be by the Rebbe. So just a general thing. The concept of going into the Rebbe is a fundamental inyan in Chassidus. It's a fundamental inyan in Darkei Chassidus. It's a famous line in the Gemara, Rebbe Leishana Chia Minolon, that Chassidim teach, that the Pasha of the Pshat is that if there's a Mishnah that Rebbe didn't teach in the Mishnah, then Rabbi Chia, who wrote the Braises, where would he get it from? So everything in Braises needs a source in the Mishnah. But Chassidim teach the line, Rebbe Leishana Chia Minolon. If a person is not by the Rebbe within a year, where does he get his chayas from? So definitely there's an inyan for a person who has to go to the Rebbe, there's no question about it. The question comes, when is the best time to go to the Rebbe? So there was two Chassidim once, Rabbi Futterfas and Rabbi Avraham Ayor were bringing once, I heard the story, Rabbi Futterfas and Rabbi Avraham Ayor. And they were arguing what's the best time to go to the Rebbe. Rabbi Futterfas said the best time is to go for Tisha. And Rabbi Avraham Ayor said the best time is to go right now. When is right now? Whenever you have a chance. Whenever you have the opportunity, that's the time that you're supposed to go. There isn't a specific time. And throughout the years, there were always chassidim that it was their time. They went on this and this time. For example, Tzidur Rabbanim would always go on Shavuos, and most chassidim would always go on Tishrei. And then there were people that come for Shabbos Bereishis. There were people that had a big koch in Yud Shvat, people that had a koch in Yud Tes Kislev, people that would come for Yud Beis Tammuz. Different people had their times to go, but there was no such thing as this is the time you're supposed to go. Meaning, there's no such thing as a Yom Tov, that part of the checklist for that Yom Tov is to go into the Rebbe. It's on the checklist for every single Yom Tov. Just as the same way it's on the checklist for Yitray, it's on the checklist for Havdalah Tevis, and for Yites Kislev, and for Pesach Sheni. Every day in the year, it's always a time to be by the Rebbe. There's no such thing as one day more than anything else. Over the past few years, it began when I was a Bacher, and the Tavshin Samach, it was Chamishim Shana, it became a thing that many yeshivas decided that Bachrim should come in. They felt that after Gimel Tammuz, there's a Schwachkeit in the Iskashrus, they want to make a thing that everyone should come in. And the time that they decided on was Yud Shvat. I don't know why it was that. I mean, that year was Yud Shvat. It was Chamishim Shana, made sense. But I don't know why it continued. It was many times. It was Eiserus for a one-time thing, and it was a one-time thing, and that was it. The Rebbe spoke about three tests before Yud Shvat on Tashim Mem Zayin. It wasn't the thing that continued to the later years. Or the Rebbe spoke about breaking every night in Chodesh Kislev. It was 1 year. There were certain things the Rebbe spoke about one time. So here also it was Eiserus. Excited. That's anyway. It's Davis. Remember next year. The Chevra, they know about it. The guys are makli, they try. So it,
And the fact it continued doesn't show something?
it didn't always continue, and when
The fact that other things were started didn't continue. And
it was started by Bachrim. It wasn't started by Chassidim, by older Chassidim.
Even more
Well,
things.
okay, let me finish till the end, and then if you have more comments, you'll be able to mix in. But Akopanim, this way, it wasn't a thing that was ever part of the specific Yud Shvat checklist. So B'meila, so it's just guys should know this. It wasn't always a thing. There were certain chassidim that always went for Yitas Kislev or for Yud Shvat or whatever it may be. It wasn't always a thing. That's another thing. Now, another nekuda is that over the years there were always bachrim that in early years we select more often. And our experience from the yeshiva, even the bachrim that went kivyachol for the right reasons, they came back worse for the weird. Most Bachrim, when they come back with an attitude that is only a month left after Yud Shvat till Pesach. It's only a month and a half, and they ended up coming back with less chayas than when they went. And many Bachrim, that was the time for them. They went home, they were able to buy other things that they shouldn't have in yeshiva, and it ended up being a yirida tzorich yirida. So it wasn't. We didn't see any aliyah that came out of it. Even the Bachrim that went and there was no Yirida, very, very rarely, if ever, did we see an Aliyah. We didn't see something which there was a gain afterwards, that the Bachar grows. Does that mean that I should never... course, is a point to go. However, for a Bacher to take off Seder, and take in the middle of Seder Yeshiva, to go into the Rebbe, it was something which the Rebbe did not approve of. The Rebbe did not allow Bachim to come in randomly to come to 770. And they were all the years there were Bachim that wanted to come, and they pushed as much as possible, and the Rebbe didn't allow them. And then Hanholos of Yeshivas from Chutz La'aretz, not around Crown Heights, they were always fighting with the Bachim, that the Rebbe would tell the Hanholos not to let the Bachim come in, and the Bachim were asking, "You want to come in?" And the Rebbe didn't. There's letters you can see. There's Chaim Kesselman and Miss Nemenov that they were fighting. The Rebbe wanted the Bachim to come in with special achonis and at the right time, not randomly to come in. So that was the Seder all the years, and that's the Seder that we're trying to apply as well. Another Nakuda is that many Bachim that do go for the right reasons, and they can't have an Aliyah, but they don't, a lot of Bachim are missing Michlal certain things that are supposed to be done on Yud Shvat. For example, there's the minute to learn the Basi Lagani Maimer, Tavshin Yud, and here it's the night, and after Ma'ariv, and then by Shachas, and then by Mincha. So Bachim that I spoke to, they went into Crown Heights, but they didn't end up hearing the Basi Lagani, because they were too busy running from Fabrengen to Fabrengen. So the things that are a clear minute that you're supposed to be doing, the Pasha didn't have the opportunity to hear it. Were you supposed to learn a Perek Tani before Shachas and after Mincha? They did learn a Perek because they're too running, they're busy, they're going to the oil, they're going around back and forth. So it's not that it's, but the thing that the Rebbe clearly says that you're supposed to do, the Bachar ended up not doing. The Mishnais, I think most Bachar end up doing, even in Crown Heights. But even clothing, many Bachar that they go there, they end up, there's more of a Yerida and more of a lacking of what is supposed to be than what it is. So I know that today, you guys are growing up after Tafshin Samach, so it became a thing that most yeshivas, that many Bachar go in, but we grew up before Tafshin Samach and Hola. We look at it as a thing that was never supposed to be, and it was something we don't see that it gives an aliyah to the Bachrim, fakert, and that's why we include we made this policy. Another nakuda is that what happens is whenever one Bachrim comes in, is that all his friends want to go in as well. And even though, yes, I have the right kavanah, but you agree that he doesn't have the right kavanah, and he's going to want to go in for the wrong kavanah, and then he'll do v'chulu v'chulu v'chulu. So what's going to happen then? So if they say you yeah and him not, it's always hard to do that. Therefore, it is a policy. Another thing is that whenever one Bachar goes in, so then it becomes a pressure not only on the other Bachars, on the other Bachar, but on their parents as well. And many parents have told us in the past that we can't afford bringing our kid in for Chanukah, and then again for Yud Shvat, and then again for Pesach. It's a lot. Every ticket, especially for postal, is very expensive. So therefore, put that together. It's hard for them, and parents were complaining to us. So when Bachar, what happens is when one Bachar goes in, so what happens? His friend calls his parents, "Ma, the whole class is going in besides me." So she feels no pressure, so she has to buy a ticket. So the next kid, it's not one kid, it's already two kids. So it's not the whole class, it's both yeshivas together. And the third kid says the whole post is going in, the balabatim also. It becomes a big pressure on the parents, and it's very hard for them, for some parents. So therefore, it's another cheshbon. Another very big reason is that the Eibishter created something called winter, and snowstorms, and delays, and ice, and all that. And for some reason, Hashgacha Prat is always Yud Shvat time, these things happen. And in Meshach the years, whenever Bachim did go in, almost, I can't say always, but almost always something happens. Whether it is a delay or there's something there, it can be a crash, things end up happening, and these things always end up being a big headache to the Nolsei Shiva, because even though the Bachim say, I'll take care of it, but if a Bachim is stuck 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the highway, middle of nowhere, or he's faced 9 o'clock at night in Chicago without anywhere to go, so he's going to call his parents, and his parents are going to call us, and that's what ends up happening. And Mamela is something which is very hard for them, although we can't deal with it. So that's another cheshbon, another thing that it's another big headache for us that we don't think that it's justifiable. Another cheshbon is that when Bachrim do end up going, so even though some other Bachrim are not really excited about going, they don't care, and they end up staying over here, but it ends up being a big shvachkeit, just like whenever there's some Bachrim leave yeshiva, it's always the Bachrim that are here, they're being more feeling a shvachkeit. And not everybody can go in, like I said before, anyway. So the guys that are here end up being stuck, and they feel like losers, and Hashem, they can't do the yeshiva properly, and it becomes a big shvachkeit for everybody else. And biyachad in kol zeh, all these cheshbonis together comes to the policy that Hope understood a little bit.